Well, I've talked about it before, and Universal themselves have hinted that there potentially could be a virtual line entry system into the individual portals of Epic Universe, and it definitely seems that they are at least prepared for this, as there are some objects that they're kind of trying to hide, not really trying to hide. It's really easy to see them, and I think these are likely them prepping for that. So we got an article here from Blog Mickey. We're going to read through and get some thoughts on the subject and what this could mean when this park opens. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic, and the headline is Universal preparing to test virtual line entry into Epic Universe lands? It says, while visiting Epic Universe today, we noticed that a temporary setup at most of the entry portals to the themed worlds or lands within the park. We were there yesterday, and I saw these as well. And you can see from the picture right here, they're not really hidden. I mean, they're obviously got things in front of them. There's some sort of tarp or drape over them. But being that they're right next to these portals, I do imagine this is them prepping it on some level for that. It says 3 of the 4 portals have temporary installations believed to be digital signs installed right outside the portal. And with the recent news that Universal Orlando could utilize virtual lines for entry into the lands, it's possible that these digital signs are being installed to test the virtual line entry into the lands ahead of the May 22nd grand opening. It's also very possible that these could be installed for the upcoming media grand opening event taking place May 20th through the 21st, but it seems a bit early for that. I agree with that. They also said temporary signage has been installed at the portals. It says, of course, without an official announcement as to what the signage is for, we're speculating here, but it could make some amount of sense that Universal Orlando would want to try and communicate any virtual line information near the entry to each land if they were actually preparing to test the system. In theory, this temporary signage could communicate when a virtual line is required to enter the land and when you're able to simply walk right in. While crowds are certainly higher during recent previews than when previews began, they're still nowhere near what is expected for the opening weeks and months of the park. To that end, if this were a virtual line test, we imagine that it would simply be a test of the system and not necessarily a requirement based on current demand. The only portal without an installation as of today is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And it's possible that either cruise will install that setup soon or that it won't really be necessary with the only attraction in the land currently utilizing a virtual queue anyways. It says the Wizarding World is typically less crowded due to the lack of things to do outside of the Battle at the Ministry attraction. So I actually think this falls in line with what I've talked about before, which is essentially, I think that's the consensus here, is that this virtual line potential system they would use to enter the portals is basically an as-if needed basis. Like they're not going to require it right off the bat, but if some of these lands hit capacity, they then fall into a virtual line type of system. It also makes sense if that is what you're going to do, you would set these up near the portals, which we can see here. These are set up right next to the portals and most of them are near the exit areas of the portals as well. And then it would communicate to people that, would have a sign. I'm guessing what the grass covering this sign here would be saying, virtual line required to enter. Here's how you get into the virtual line, probably a QR code or something, or you do it within the app, whatever that would be, however they would do that. I would imagine that's what that's for, and just having that system ready if they do need it. That's my guess. Again, I'm still going to contend, I don't think they're going to open this park, and as soon as you walk in on opening day, they're just going to be like, virtual queues for everything. You got to have it to get into the land. You got to have it to ride Battle of the Ministry. I don't see that being the case because I do think they're obviously, like, you're trying to contend with demand, with guest satisfaction. And we've already seen how much of a mess Battle of the Ministry is, and we were there yesterday, and we didn't get even close to getting a virtual queue for Battle of the Ministry. In fact, one of the times we tried, it never even showed up. And the last time we tried, you get a time, you try and do it, and it just would go away. So I think yesterday was a really low capacity day for that ride, undoubtedly. I would really be curious as to know how many people in a given day have been able to get a virtual queue. Some people had more luck than others, obviously, but it's essentially, I still contend, it's basically a virtual lottery. There's just no way. I don't think there's any really skill involved with this because we were on it the minute or 2 minutes before 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock, one of the drops were, on it back and forth. They had 3 or 4 people trying to do it and still never got anything. I don't really think it's a skill thing. I think it's just however the system works, whatever I do know, it has been very frustrating for people. So it has been disappointing. We've been to this park twice, haven't even gone through the queue to really check it out. And for that reason, we really haven't really explored much of Ministry of Magic for that reason. Now, I will say, having been there yesterday, I still love this park. I think it's a great park, but it does have its issues. And one of them being when you have rides down and Battle to Ministry not having a high ride capacity, it does cause high wait times in other areas of the park, undoubtedly. Stardust Racers was down all day, which has been down for days. Curse of the Werewolf was down all day. Battle to Ministry obviously was very finicky. Not many people got virtual queues for that. I talked to quite a few people in the park, and some listeners actually came up and said hey to me. So for those of you that came up and said hi, thanks for saying hi and hello. And if you ever see me, feel free to say hello. So that was a cool part of just talking to a few listeners and people out there at the park that day. All of them I talked to said they didn't get one either. So I don't know how many people were able to get one, but I think potentially when you're looking at this park though, like if these rides go down and you don't have a lot of these, high capacity rides going on that can eat up crowds, you are going to see some really high wait times. We rope dropped Isle of Burke with our kids, and Hiccups Wing Gliders was an hour and 30 minutes. The meet and greet was an hour and 30 minutes. Minecart Madness was basically 90 plus minutes all day long. And some of the rides, like as the day went along, some dropped, some got higher, but I think having some of these rides down is going to cause issues because, again, you're not even seeing close to the maximum, capacity or the capacity they're going to have when this park opens. So I actually think if some of these rides don't get fixed and really going smoothly before this park opens we're talking a matter of, less than a couple of weeks now before this park opens, I think the chances of it happening rise quite a bit in that situation. And they seem to be, from this, I'm guessing they're preparing for this system if they do need to use it. And that way, I'm sure maybe they're thinking, hopefully we don't have to, but if we need to, we have it here. Now, I guess the plus side with this, I do think the virtual line system to enter the portals would work different than Battle to Ministry, because Battle to Ministry is only going to have a select number of slots available for people, and once those are up, those are gone. But when you're talking about the virtual line here to get into lands, it's kind of more of a revolving list. So if you're, you get on that list, once enough people leave the land, you could then enter. So it could be something where once you get into a virtual line, you may be able to get into it within, a short amount of time. It could be a long time. Just really depends on how long, I guess, people spend in these lands, because I also haven't heard that there's going to be any sort of like time limitations on any of these lands to go into them. So it would be really dependent upon how much time people are spending in each portal. But that is something that I do think that is a possibility if you're looking at going in the opening timeline here, especially opening day or opening week, that you could fall into having to use the virtual line system. And from a guest standpoint, that will be interesting to see how that goes over. I do contend the biggest potential Achilles heel for this park is Battle to Ministry in that virtual queue, and this potential virtual line system being used to enter the portals, as well as the reliability of these rides. Again, we're seeing a lot of these rides not open for days now, unknown what the issues are, if they're fixing things that they know are wrong with them. We do know Battle to Ministry is going to be down for days. Like they've already said, it's going to be down for, I can't remember how many days from now, but it's going to be down for multiple days of previews, as they presumably are working on something with that ride. So if they can make some breakthroughs on these rides and they operate well, you may not see the usage of the virtual lines for the portals, but if these things still linger and you got a lot more people coming to the park, I think you might see this, and it'll be really interesting to see what the guest reaction to this is. If there's people that are, not satisfied, all that stuff will be very interesting in a brand new theme park opening, and what this looks like. So we're definitely in an unprecedented territory when it comes to at least Universal parks. A brand new theme park opening with this much demand. How do they handle it? How do the guests react to it? So I definitely think, it's a potential what you could see here. And so if you are going in the opening time period, like we're going to be there opening day, I have very low expectations. Granted, we've already been in this park twice. So a lot of these rides, we've gotten to ride already. So there's not going to be a huge, at least on our end of like a big, push to really try and do as much stuff as we can. But I do think a lot of people coming here, it's going to be their first time, perhaps their first time interacting with Universal parks. How do they react to this? Does Universal really, get the message out there that this is something you might have to deal with? How smoothly do they do it? So I think a lot of this is going to depend on how well and smooth this virtual line system runs, and if they're able to, make it where it's not as frustrating for the Battle to Ministry, because the assumption there is that it's going to be virtual line when this park opens. So a lot of unknowns here. And it seems like Universal is at least prepared to be using the virtual line system on a lot of different elements of this park, specifically the portals and Battle to Ministry here. So we'll have to see how this goes, and if Universal says anything about it. And maybe this is just for media previews, potentially. Maybe they're setting something up for that. Maybe these are also some sort of information kiosks as well. It could be that. But, given what we know what Universal said, it could be them getting ready to use it. So we'll have to wait and see. But either way, just want to update everybody on that. And that's all I know on the subject here. So that's going to be it, though, for this video. And something I have not done on here, and I don't know if I've ever done it, is actually promote the fact that we have a clothing brand called Capture the Magic Apparel that we've had for years. And we actually have some new Epic Universe designed shirts. We have 5 in general that you can check out. One of them I'm wearing right here. And for a limited time, you can use the promo code YouTube and get 20% off of your order. Plus, you get free shipping on over $50 worth. And all the shirts, we actually print them in-house and design them ourselves. We don't use third-party printers, so they are very high quality. And I wear these shirts all the time. So if you want to support the channel like what we do around here and get yourself some good shirts there, you can go check that out at ctmapparelco.com and use the promo code YouTube to get 20% off of your order. But as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel as we do all this coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about the potential usage of the virtual line system for not only Battle of the Ministry, but getting to the portals of this theme park? And how do you think that'll go if they do that? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.